I've been a session drummer for a very long time, recording for a really wide range of artists, producers, mix engineers. And there is one plugin that I always print to my raw drum tracks when I send them out, which is Auto Align by Sound Radix. I've been using this plugin for years. And recently I had a conversation with Nir Everbook, one of the co-founders of Sound Radix, who shared some best practices with me that I'm going to pass on to you. Getting your phase right can really make or break your drum sound. Setting up the sends and receives in Auto Align is a really important part of it. Let's dig into the components of the kit. We'll start with the bass drum, and that's going to be send 1. If you have more than one mic on the bass drum, let's say a kick out mic or a sub kick, or both in my case, those two will receive group 1. So the kick in mic, which is closest to the beater impact, is going to drive the phasing of the two outside mics. Next, on the snare drum, you often will have a snare top mic, a snare bottom mic, and sometimes a snare shell mic. In this case, the snare top mic is going to drive the transient detection. The snare bottom and snare shell are both going to be receiving on send 2. Next up are the stereo overheads. They're going to be receiving channel 2, the snare top, so that all snare hits line up exactly with the overheads. Each of the overheads is going to be sending to that particular side of the kit. So, for example, overhead left, which is nearest the rack tom and the hi-hat, is going to receive on 2 and send out on 3. Then we'll make the hi-hat and rack tom receive on 3. Same with the overhead right, which is nearest the floor tom and the ride cymbal. Will receive on 2 and send on 4. And then of course the floor tom and the ride cymbal mic will receive on 4. For other positions around the drum set, such as mono overhead, kit center, kit crush, experiment to see if they work better paired to the bass drum or the snare drum. Next up, for our Broom Bikes, we're actually not going to align them to the snare drum because we want to preserve the spatial distance so we can get a sense of the size of the room. What we're going to do is make the room mics in phase with each other. In our case, we have 2 sets of room mics going right now. A pair on the floor and a stereo pair of ribbons in the corner. So the floor mics will be group 5, the corner mics will be group 6. For this demonstration, we're going to be running 19 mics around the drums, which we know is probably overkill, but we really just want to show what this plugin is doing. Also, we've gone through each preamp and set the phase alignment to the overheads. So we've got it as tight as we can get by the traditional method. Now that we've set up our groups, let's record some drums so our mix engineer can dial in the alignment.
Mixing live drums or anything with multiple mics can introduce a lot of phase and delay problems because you have 2 different microphones on the same sound source. They may be at different distances or they may have different responses. So those tend to cancel frequencies out, and that makes your sound not as full, and it can actually remove a lot of low end or high end or detail. Auto Align by Sound Radix has been my #1 tool for years to combat this, and I would say it's a must-have for live drums in particular, but like I said, pretty much anything with multiple mics. So let's take a look at Dylan's drum session and set up Auto Align for mixing. Okay, so he already has Auto Align on all of the relevant tracks, but the Auto Align hasn't actually been detected. So the way this works is Auto Align will talk to its other instances. So for instance, if I put one Auto Align on each drum microphone, then I can assign it to channels. So this is the kick in, and that's sending out channel 1. Now I have this one is kick out, and that's receiving on channel 1. So what this is going to do is when I hit detect on the kick out, when we're playing, it's going to detect what's happening on the kick in and adjust the delay and the phase so that those 2 microphones are as close as possible in phase relationship, and it'll have the fullest detail and the best frequency spectrum possible for this sound. He's pretty much set up all the routing for these. So typically what I'll do is I'll just open a bunch of these because it takes a little while to detect. So I'll detect multiple at the same time. So let's get started. I'm going to loop a section of drums here. We'll just play it while it's going. And then the send on number 1, we don't have to worry about that. So the kick out and the sub kick, we're going to set this to delay and polarity and then hit detect. Same with the sub kick. And those two are going to start detecting. And in the meantime, we're going to load up a snare. Oh, look at this. The kick out is already set. It's minus 32 samples with the phase in phase, not flipped there, because it'll automatically adjust the phase flip. And the sub kick is the same thing. In phase, minus 63 samples. So the snare is going into a different channel, channel 2, so we don't need to worry about the snare top. Snare bottom is receiving channel 2, so we'll get that detecting. This is the snare shell, also receiving channel 2, we'll get that going. And then we have the hi-hat is receiving channel 3. We haven't sent anything to channel 3 yet, so we're going to wait on that for a minute. And this is overhead left, and it's receiving channel 2, but sending to channel 3. So that's receiving from the snare, and then it's sending to channel 3, which includes the hi-hat. So we're going to detect this first, and then after this is done detecting, then we'll be able to detect the hi-hat. These two snares have finished, so we can close those up. Keep this one open, and now that's completed, so we can start the hi-hat. Let's check out overhead right. So that's receiving on 2 and sending to 4. We can get that going. This one can close. And now this is overhead mono. We can get that going. Hi-hat's completed. Keep these over here. Then let's check out the ride. That's going to be on 4, which we have detected. That was overhead right. Oh, sorry, that actually hasn't finished yet. Overhead right, now it just finished. So I like to wait till the one that's sending the signal is finished detecting in case that makes any adjustments. Then further down the chain, those adjustments will be reflected. So this can all get closed except for this ride symbol, it's still detecting. Now we have a rack tom that's receiving from 3, which is overhead left. And then we have the floor tom is receiving from 4, overhead right. Get those going. This kit crush is receiving from the snare. Front of kit also receiving from the snare. We're going to detect those. This floor mic is sending to a new channel on number 5. That's just sending to its counterpart, the other side. So we'll just detect that one. We can close this, that's a send channel. And then we have some room mics, same thing, it's sending to 6, but not receiving from anything. So that's using that itself as a baseline. Number 6, we can receive, start detecting that. Now we can close up these that have been detected. Anything that has a number on it basically is pretty much been detected. So we're just waiting for this last one to finish detecting, and then we'll have the result of our auto-align treatment. Now that everything's auto-aligned, what we're going to do is we're going to A/B with auto-align off and with auto-align on all the tracks. I'm just going to master bypass every single instance. And we can really hear what this whole treatment is doing to just the raw drum tracks. As you can see, it's just levels. I have no other processing on here, no reverbs or anything. So this is no auto-align. Let's take a listen. Turn it back on. Off. On. So as you can hear, there's a big difference in the snare in particular. That's where I'm really hearing it the most. And just overall, the kit kind of has a more fuller sound, but the snare really has a lot more low end and depth and clarity. And the whole kit, you can just hear a lot more detail simply by just adjusting the phase relationship on these microphones. Let's hear it again. On. So one more little tip for auto align is there's a noise floor slider on the side of the plugin, and Sound Radix has a great video that you can check out here to show you how to use that, and it can give you better detection, particularly on more noisy recordings. I actually ran it on this recording and I didn't really notice much sonic difference, so I didn't put it in this video. But anyway, check that out. It could be helpful for your auto align use. So in summary, this, like I said, it's a pretty much an indispensable tool for me. You can hear how it even makes the whole track louder because the frequencies that are there are actually going to be punching harder. They're not going to be canceling each other out. But without any other processing, we've made it fuller, more detail, louder, punchier, more bass. Just everything is better, and it's a lot closer to a final mix than it was without this treatment. This has been Cooper Anderson from Creating the Sound, and we will catch you on the next video.